Have you seen Naomi? Useless. Just a housewife. My husband Caleb's voice carried across the wedding reception hall, followed by the raucous laughter of his friends. I froze behind the large floral arrangement, champagne glass trembling in my hand as he continued. She couldn't get a real job if she tried. More laughter. I should have been used to Caleb's subtle put-downs by now, but hearing him mock me so openly to his colleagues, at my sister's wedding no less, made something inside me finally snap. What Caleb didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I, Naomi Wright, was actually the owner of Wright Innovations, the very company they all worked for. The company where Caleb was merely a mid-level manager, constantly complaining about the mysterious boss who never showed their face. I had inherited the company from my father 3 years ago, but had chosen to remain anonymous, working through a trusted board of directors while I evaluated operations from afar. I had my reasons for keeping my identity secret, particularly from Caleb. Our marriage had started wonderfully 6 years ago, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, Caleb had chipped away at my confidence, criticized my ideas, and discouraged my ambitions. By the time I inherited the company, I was so unsure of myself that I couldn't imagine stepping into my father's shoes publicly. So I'd played the part of the supportive housewife while quietly running the company behind the scenes, watching, learning, and growing stronger in secret. Naomi spends her days watching cooking shows and having lunch with her equally useless friends, Caleb was saying now, his voice slightly slurred from too much wedding champagne. Meanwhile, I'm killing myself at Wright to keep us afloat. I stepped out from behind the flowers, my heart pounding. Caleb hadn't seen me yet, his back to me as he entertained his work friends. I studied him in his expensive suit, bought with money from my company, gesturing grandly as he continued to mock my existence. What does she contribute? Nothing, just what, Caleb? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. He spun around, his face dropping from laughter to shock in an instant. His friends, Jason from accounting, Peter from sales, and Christopher from Caleb's department, all looked equally uncomfortable. Naomi, I was just telling your friends what a disappointment your wife is? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Please, don't stop on my account. An awkward silence fell over the group. The wedding reception continued around us, my sister's happiest day unfolding in swirls of white tulle and twinkling lights, while my marriage imploded under the weight of this moment. Honey, it was just a joke, Caleb attempted, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. Was it? Because it sounded like the truth. Your truth, anyway. Christopher, always the peacemaker, cleared his throat. Naomi, he didn't mean... Don't. I cut him off. Don't make excuses for him. I looked each man in the eye. You all work at Wright Innovations, correct? They nodded, confusion evident on their faces. How's the quarterly projection looking? I asked casually. Jason frowned. That's confidential company business, Naomi. Yes, it is, I agreed. And the new product launch? Still scheduled for May? Peter shifted uncomfortably. How do you know about that? Caleb laughed nervously. Naomi, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. You don't know anything about business. I turned to him, years of suppressed anger finally finding their voice. Monday morning is going to be very interesting, Caleb. Very interesting indeed. With that, I walked away, leaving them puzzled and slightly alarmed. Behind me, I heard Caleb mutter, "What the hell was that about?" But I kept walking, my mind already racing ahead to Monday. For 3 years, I had hidden in the shadows, letting Caleb believe I was nothing more than a housewife. For 3 years, I had signed his paychecks without him knowing, reviewed his mediocre performance reports, and watched him take credit for other people's work, all while he came home and treated me like I was beneath him. No more. Monday morning, I would walk into Wright Innovations as its rightful CEO. I would reclaim my name, my company, and my self-respect. I would fire Caleb and his sycophantic friends, and I would finally stop living this double life. As I walked across the reception hall, my sister caught my eye from the dance floor. She must have seen something in my expression, because she frowned slightly, concerned. I gave her a reassuring smile. This was her day, and I wouldn't spoil it with my drama. I slipped out onto the terrace, breathing in the cool evening air. My phone buzzed with a message from Jacob, the company's COO and the only person who knew my true identity. Board meeting confirmed for Monday, 8 a.m. All executives will be present as requested. Perfect. I texted back a quick thanks and stared out at the cityscape below, the Wright Innovations Tower standing tall among the other buildings, its logo illuminated against the darkening sky. For too long, I had allowed fear to keep me hidden. For too long, I had let Caleb's subtle psychological manipulation convince me I wasn't capable, wasn't worthy. My phone buzzed again. Caleb, where are you? We're taking group photos. I didn't respond. Instead, I took off my wedding ring and slipped it into my purse. The weight of a decision 3 years in the making settled comfortably on my shoulders. What I didn't realize then was that Caleb had more secrets than I could imagine. And as I made plans to reveal myself at Wright Innovations, someone else was making plans that would throw everything into chaos. Plans that would make me question everything I thought I knew about my company, my marriage, and even my own father's death. I barely slept that night. Caleb came home late, stumbling into our bedroom reeking of whiskey, his drink of choice when he was worried. He mumbled an apology I pretended not to hear, then passed out fully clothed on top of the covers. I lay beside him in the dark, watching the ceiling fan spin, mentally rehearsing what I would say on Monday morning. By dawn, I had slipped out of bed and packed a small suitcase. Not everything, that would alert him, just enough for a few days at the company apartment downtown that Caleb knew nothing about. I left him snoring as I quietly closed the front door behind me. The city was just waking up as I drove to the apartment. Sunday morning traffic non-existent. I parked in the private garage and took the elevator to the penthouse, using the key I rarely had reason to use. The apartment was pristine, maintained by the same discreet service that kept all of Wright Innovations' properties ready at a moment's notice. I set my suitcase down and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. From here, I could see the Wright Innovations building, my father's legacy. My legacy now. Dad had built the company from nothing, turning a small tech startup into a Fortune 500 company over 30 years. When he died suddenly of a heart attack 3 years ago, I was devastated. We had been close, especially after my mother's death when I was in college. He'd been grooming me to take over eventually, but I hadn't expected eventually to come so soon. The shock of his death coincided with the 3rd year of my marriage to Caleb, when things had already begun to sour. At first, he'd been supportive of my career ambitions, even proud of my executive position at another company. But gradually, his comments became more cutting, his suggestions more controlling. He'd convinced me to quit my job just months before Dad died, saying we should start a family instead. Then came Dad's will reading. I expected him to have left the company to a board of trusted executives. Instead, he left everything to me, with a letter explaining his belief in my abilities and his hope that I would lead Wright Innovations to even greater heights. Caleb had been livid. You? He'd scoffed. Run a technology company? You couldn't even handle the pressure at MidCorp, and that was just a director position. His words stung because they echoed my own fears. Dad had believed in me, but did I believe in myself? In that moment of vulnerability, I'd made a decision. I would own the company but remain anonymous, working through Jacob, Dad's loyal COO, while I learned the business from the inside out. When Caleb applied for a management position at Wright a few months later, I saw an opportunity to observe him in his natural habitat. What I discovered wasn't pretty. My phone rang, pulling me from these thoughts. Jacob. Good morning, Naomi. Are you still planning to go through with this tomorrow? Absolutely, I replied. But there's something else I need you to do for me today. Name it. I need access to all of Caleb's work emails and files. And I want the last 3 years of internal security footage from the executive floor, particularly around my father's office. A pause. May I ask why? Something doesn't add up, Jacob. Caleb was too confident applying for that position at Wright, even though he knew the company was mine. It's like he knew something I didn't. Jacob was quiet for a moment. I'll have everything sent to your secure server within the hour. But Naomi, be prepared. Whatever you find might be difficult to see. I know, I said, a chill running down my spine. That's what I'm afraid of. After hanging up, I made coffee and prepared to dive into whatever Jacob would send me. My phone buzzed with texts from Caleb. Where are you? Naomi, this isn't funny. Are you seriously still upset about last night? It was a joke. Your sister's calling me, worried about you. I texted my sister to let her know I was fine but needed some space. Then I silenced my phone and opened my laptop. True to his word, Jacob had given me access to everything. I started with Caleb's emails, searching for anything related to my father. There were surprisingly few, which seemed odd considering Dad had been the company's founder and CEO. I moved on to the security footage, focusing on the weeks before my father's death. Hours passed as I combed through video after video, seeing nothing unusual until, there, 2 weeks before Dad died. Caleb entering the building late at night, using a temporary visitor's badge. I checked the dates against my own memories. This was during a business trip I'd taken with friends, a trip Caleb had encouraged me to extend by a few days. In the footage, Caleb walked purposefully, like someone who knew exactly where he was going, despite supposedly never having been to Right Innovations before. He took the executive elevator, which required special access, up to my father's floor. My heart pounded as I followed his digital footsteps through the building. The camera in Dad's outer office showed Caleb being let in by Janet, Dad's executive assistant. They seemed familiar with each other, too familiar. She looked around furtively before unlocking Dad's private office door. Caleb went in and the door closed behind him. What happened in that office? There were no cameras inside. Dad had valued his privacy. Caleb emerged 40 minutes later, slipping something into his jacket pocket before Janet escorted him out. I sat back, mind racing. What was Caleb doing in my father's office 2 weeks before his death? How did he know Janet? I checked the employee records. Janet had resigned immediately after Dad's funeral, citing grief. No one had questioned it. I searched Caleb's personal email next and found nothing suspicious until I thought to check his deleted items. There it was, an email thread with Janet going back years, long before I'd even met Caleb. Their messages were coded, but clearly they knew each other well. Too well. One message from Janet, dated just after Dad's death, read simply, "It's done. She inherits everything but doesn't suspect anything. Your path is clear." My hands trembled on the keyboard. What exactly was done? What wasn't I supposed to suspect? I dug deeper, searching medical records, police reports, anything related to Dad's death. The official cause was a heart attack, but he'd been in perfect health at his last checkup just a month prior. I'd been so overwhelmed with grief that I hadn't questioned it. Another email caught my eye, from Caleb to Janet, sent the day before my father died. He's still refusing. Says he'll never approve of me for her or for any position at Right. Time for Plan B. Ice formed in my veins. Plan B. The next day, my father was dead. I couldn't breathe. Was it possible? Had they somehow? My phone rang, startling me so badly I nearly dropped it. Caleb again. This time, I answered. Naomi. Thank God. Where are you? I've been worried sick. His concern sounded genuine, which made everything so much worse. I needed some time to think, I said, keeping my voice neutral despite the storm inside me. About last night? Honey, I'm so sorry. I was drunk and showing off. It was stupid. Yes, I agreed. It was. Caleb, did you ever meet my father? A pause. Too long. What? No, I never got the chance before he passed. The lie slid off his tongue so easily. Right, I said. Such a shame. Listen, he said, his voice softening. Why don't you come home? We can talk about this. I know I hurt you, but we can work through it. Actually, I said, I think we should talk tomorrow. At Right Innovations. There's something I need to tell you. Another pause. At Right? Why there? It'll make sense tomorrow. Meet me in the main lobby at 7:45 a.m. Naomi, what's going on? Just be there, Caleb. I hung up and immediately called Jacob. I need you to find Janet Miller, my father's former assistant. And I want a full investigation into my father's death. Private, discreet, but thorough. And one more thing. Yes? Jacob asked, sounding concerned. Move the board meeting to 9 a.m. instead of 8. I need to have a private conversation with my husband first. As I ended the call, I stared again at the Right Innovations Tower. Tomorrow I would confront Caleb about his betrayal of our marriage. But now, I also needed to consider a far more sinister possibility, that my husband might have had something to do with my father's death. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the city. In less than 12 hours, I would face Caleb and potentially uncover a truth more painful than his public humiliation of me. I just didn't know if I was ready for what I might learn. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Don't go through with tomorrow. Some secrets should stay buried. For your own safety. I stared at the message, a chill running through me. Who else knew what I was planning? And what exactly were they warning me about? Sleep was impossible after that text message. I spent the night alternating between reviewing more files and pacing the apartment, jumping at every sound. By 5 a.m., I decided to simply get ready for the day that would change everything. I dressed with purpose. A sleek charcoal suit my father had bought me when I graduated business school, a silk blouse in Right Innovations' signature blue, and my mother's pearl earrings for courage, my armor for battle. Jacob called at 6:30. Security is briefed. They know to expect you and to treat you as CEO without any public announcement until after the board meeting. I've also arranged for a private security detail, given that message you received. Were you able to trace it? No. Sent from a burner phone, already discarded. But I found Janet Miller. My heart skipped. Where is she? Living under her maiden name in Phoenix. She took a generous severance package after your father's death and disappeared. But there's something else you should know. Monthly payments of $10,000 have been going into an offshore account in her name for the past 3 years. From where? That's the thing. They're coming from a shell company that I've traced back to. Your husband. I gripped the phone tighter. He's been paying her off. It appears so. I've also started the investigation into your father's death. The initial medical examiner's report noted some anomalies that were never followed up on. Nothing conclusive yet, but my father might have been murdered, I finished, voicing the terrible suspicion that had kept me awake all night. It's possible, Jacob admitted. Naomi, are you sure you want to confront Caleb alone? Given what we now suspect, I'll have security nearby, I assured him. And I need to see his face when I confront him. I need to know the truth, Jacob. After we hung up, I gathered my evidence, copies of the emails, stills from the security footage, financial records of the payments to Janet, and placed them in a leather portfolio. Then I called for the car that would take me to Right Innovations. The city was fully awake now. Monday morning traffic creating a familiar symphony of horns and engines. My driver, part of the security detail Jacob had arranged, remained silent as we made our way to the heart of the business district, where the gleaming Right Innovations Tower stood. We arrived at 7:30. I entered through the private executive entrance, nodding to the security guards who, for the first time, acknowledged me as someone who belonged there. The executive elevator required a fingerprint scan. My father had insisted on top-tier security, and for the first time, I used my own instead of Jacob's override. Good morning, Ms. Wright. The elevator's automated voice greeted me. Welcome back. The doors opened directly into the executive floor reception area. Grace, the current receptionist, looked up in surprise. May I help you, ma'am? Good morning, Grace, I said, enjoying her confusion. Please let the security team know I'll be meeting Caleb Peterson in conference room A in 15 minutes. I'm sorry, who are you here to see? Jacob appeared from his office then, right on cue. Grace, this is Naomi Wright, CEO of Right Innovations and daughter of our founder. Grace's eyes widened. I had no idea, Ms. Wright. I apologize for not recognizing you. No apology necessary, I assured her, then turned to Jacob. Is everything ready? He nodded. Security is in position. They'll escort Caleb to conference room A when he arrives, and they'll be stationed outside the door. And the board members? All arriving for the 9 a.m. meeting, completely unaware of what's about to happen. I checked my watch, 7:40. Caleb would be here soon. I'd like a moment in my father's office first. Jacob nodded in understanding, and led me to the large corner office I'd only visited as a guest since inheriting the company. Dad's office had been preserved largely as he left it, though some of the personal touches had been removed and stored for me. I walked to the large desk and ran my fingers along its polished surface. "This is where he died, isn't it?" "Yes," Jacob said quietly. "He was working late. I found him the next morning." I looked around the space, trying to imagine my father's final moments. Had he been alone? Or had someone been here with him? Had Caleb been involved somehow? The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Wright?" came Grace's voice. "Mr. Peterson has arrived and is being escorted to conference room A." "Thank you, Grace." I took a deep breath and gathered my portfolio. "Wish me luck, Jacob." "You don't need luck, Naomi. You have truth on your side." Conference room A was a small, elegant space used for sensitive meetings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while privacy glass could be activated with the touch of a button to create complete seclusion. I arrived before Caleb, setting my materials on the polished table and taking a seat with my back to the door. A power move my father had taught me. Make them come to you. Let them see you first. The door opened. I didn't turn around. "Naomi?" Caleb's voice was confused. "What's going on? Why are there security guards outside?" "Sit down, Caleb," I said, still not turning. I heard him pull out a chair. "You're scaring me. What is this about?" Finally, I swiveled my chair to face him. His expression was a mixture of confusion and concern that might have seemed genuine if I hadn't spent the night uncovering his lies. 3 years ago, I began. My father died suddenly, leaving me as the owner of Wright Innovations. Caleb nodded slowly. "Yes, I know that. It was a terrible shock. A few months later, you applied for a position here, despite knowing the company was mine. I needed a job," he said defensively. "And you weren't involved in the day-to-day operations, so I didn't see the conflict." "Didn't you?" I opened the portfolio and slid a photograph across the table. A still from the security footage showing him entering my father's office with Janet. This was taken 2 weeks before my father died. The color drained from Caleb's face. "I can explain." "Please do," I said coldly. "Explain why you lied about never meeting my father. Explain why you were in his office late at night when I was conveniently out of town. A trip you encouraged me to extend." "It's not what you think," he stammered. "Then explain these," I said, sliding over printouts of the emails between him and Janet. "Explain Plan B the day before my father died. Explain the $10,000 monthly payments to Janet Miller for the past 3 years. Caleb's expression hardened. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been uncovering the truth," I corrected him. "Now answer me. Did you have something to do with my father's death?" He stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. I'm not sitting here being accused of—" "Sit down." My voice cut through his protest like a knife. To my surprise, he obeyed. "You humiliated me at my sister's wedding, making fun of me for being just a housewife, when all along you knew exactly who I was. You've been lying to me for years. I deserve the truth, Caleb." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing but now saw as calculated, buying time to concoct another lie. "Your father didn't approve of me," he finally said. "He thought I wasn't good enough for you. That meeting, I was trying to convince him otherwise. And Janet, how do you know her?" His jaw tightened. "We dated in college. It was a coincidence that she worked for your father." "A convenient coincidence," I noted. "And the payments?" "She's been blackmailing me," he admitted, though I wasn't sure I believed him. "She threatened to tell you about our past relationship, make it seem like I married you to get close to your father's company." "Didn't you?" His eyes flashed with anger. "Is that what you think? That our entire marriage has been some elaborate con?" "I don't know what to think anymore, Caleb, but I know you've been hiding things from me. Important things." I leaned forward. "What was Plan B?" He looked away. "It wasn't what you're thinking. Your father refused to accept me, refused to see that I could be an asset to his company. Plan B was going around him, applying directly to HR after he made it clear he wouldn't give me his blessing." It sounded plausible, but something in his delivery felt rehearsed. I pushed harder. "And his death the very next day? Just a convenient coincidence?" Caleb's face darkened. Are you actually accusing me of killing your father? I'm asking if you had anything to do with his death. No, he said firmly. I did not. Your father died of a heart attack, Naomi. It was tragic, but natural. Then you won't mind if we reopen the investigation. Have his body exhumed if necessary. A flash of something, fear, crossed his face before he controlled it. Do whatever you need to do. I had nothing to do with his death. I studied him, trying to see past the mask he wore, to the man I thought I'd known. There's one more thing you should know, Caleb. What's that? I'm the CEO of Right Innovations. I always have been. And as of this moment, you're fired. He laughed incredulously. You can't fire me? You don't run the company. The board does, on your behalf. Actually, I do run the company, I corrected him. I've been making all the major decisions for 3 years, through Jacob. The board meets my directives, not the other way around. Realization dawned on his face. All this time? You've been my boss? Ironic, isn't it? While you were belittling me at home, mocking my intelligence, my capabilities, I was signing your paychecks. His expression changed, a calculating look I recognized all too well. Naomi, let's not be hasty. We can work this out. Our marriage is over, I finished for him. I've already filed for divorce. As the words left my mouth, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the building. The lights flickered, then went out completely before emergency generators kicked in, bathing the room in dim red lighting. What's happening? Caleb demanded. The door burst open, and Jacob rushed in. Naomi, we need to evacuate, now. What's going on? Someone's breached our security systems. They've accessed the executive floor database. All the files you were looking at last night about your father. My blood ran cold. Who? We don't know yet, Jacob said grimly. But they left a message. He handed me his tablet. On the screen, a single line of text. I warned you to let it go. Now we finish what we started 3 years ago. I looked up at Caleb, whose face had gone completely white. Caleb? I asked, fear gripping my heart. What have you done? The building shook with a distant explosion. Chaos erupted. Emergency sirens wailed as the building's evacuation protocol activated. Jacob gripped my arm, pulling me toward the door. We need to get you out of here now, he insisted, his normally calm demeanor replaced with urgent concern. Caleb stood frozen, his face ashen. This wasn't supposed to happen, he whispered, almost to himself. I whirled on him. What wasn't supposed to happen, Caleb? What do you know about this? Before he could answer, 2 security guards burst into the room. Ms. Wright, we need to evacuate you immediately. We have a secure route prepared. Jacob nodded. Go with them, Naomi. I'll handle things here. What about him? I pointed at Caleb, who still seemed shocked by the unfolding events. Jacob's expression hardened. We'll make sure he's escorted out, and directly to the authorities if necessary. As security began leading me away, Caleb suddenly snapped out of his daze. Naomi, wait! You don't understand! You're in danger! From whom, Caleb? You, I shot back. No, from people much more powerful than me. People who've been controlling things from the shadows. His eyes were wild, pleading. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I just wanted a piece of my father's company, I finished bitterly. It wasn't like that, he insisted, as one of the guards took his arm. Naomi, listen to me. Another explosion rocked the building, this one closer. The lights flickered again. No time, the head of security said firmly. Ms. Wright, we need to move now. As we rushed toward the executive elevator, I glanced back at Caleb being restrained by the other guard. Our eyes met briefly, and despite everything, I saw something that gave me pause. Not the calculation or manipulation I'd grown accustomed to, but genuine fear. The elevator required Jacob's override to operate during an emergency. He swiped his security badge and pressed his thumb to the scanner. Take her directly to the secure garage, he instructed the guards. The car is waiting. I've contacted the authorities, but don't wait for them. What about you? I asked as the elevator doors began to close. I need to secure the systems and make sure everyone evacuates safely. I'll meet you at the safe house. The doors closed before I could protest. The descent was tense, the emergency lights casting eerie shadows inside the elevator. My mind raced, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Caleb's betrayal, the possibility that my father was murdered, and now this attack on the company. Were they all connected? Who else was involved? Ms. Wright, one of the guards spoke, interrupting my thoughts. I'm James, and this is Reed. We've been briefed on the situation. Once we reach the garage, we'll get you into an armored vehicle and take you to a secure location. I nodded, grateful for their calm professionalism. Do we know what caused the explosions? Preliminary reports suggest targeted bombs, Reed answered grimly. Someone wanted to create a distraction, not cause maximum casualties. To cover up the data breach, I murmured, understanding. They needed to destroy the servers. Exactly, James confirmed, which means whoever did this knows precisely what they're after. The elevator slowed as we reached the basement level where the private garage was located. Stay behind us, James instructed as the doors opened. The garage was dimly lit, eerily quiet compared to the chaos above. Our footsteps echoed as we moved quickly toward a black SUV with tinted windows parked in a reserved space. We were halfway there when the lights went out completely, plunging us into darkness. A moment later, emergency lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. Keep moving, Reed urged, his hand on my elbow guiding me forward. A sound echoed behind us, footsteps moving fast. James spun around, his hand going to his weapon. Who's there? A familiar voice called out. Naomi! Caleb emerged from the shadows, breathing heavily as if he'd run down the stairs. Both guards drew their weapons. Stay where you are, Mr. Peterson, James commanded. Caleb raised his hands. Naomi, please. You need to hear me out. You're walking into a trap. I hesitated. What are you talking about? I tried to warn you with that text last night. That was you? He nodded. I knew you were investigating. When I saw you access those files about your father, how did you know what I was accessing? I interrupted, suddenly suspicious. Caleb's expression was pained. Because I've been monitoring the system, trying to protect those files from being found. I never wanted you to learn the truth about your father this way. So you do know what happened to him, I accused. Not everything, he admitted, but enough to know that his death wasn't a simple heart attack, and enough to know that the same people who orchestrated it are now after you. James stepped forward. Ms. Wright, we need to go, now. Something in his tone made me look at him more carefully. There was a tension in his stance that hadn't been there before. I glanced at Reed and noticed his eyes darting toward the exit. These aren't the regular security guards, Caleb said quietly. Jacob would never have sent you with men you don't know. I took a step back. Who are you really? James's expression shifted, his professional demeanor dissolving into something harder. We don't have time for this. Get in the car, Ms. Wright. Naomi. Caleb's voice was urgent but controlled. Jacob always uses the same 4-person security team for executive protection. Adams, Smith, Rodriguez, and Wilson. Do you recognize these men? I looked from Caleb to the 2 guards. Neither was familiar to me. Last chance, Reed said, his gun now pointing directly at me. Get in the car. In that moment, I made a split-second decision. I lunged sideways, away from both the men and Caleb, and dove behind a concrete pillar. A shot rang out, echoing deafeningly in the enclosed space. Naomi! Caleb shouted, ducking behind a nearby car. More shots followed. I crouched lower, heart pounding, trying to make myself as small as possible behind the pillar. The concrete chipped near my head as a bullet struck it. You can't escape, James called out. The building is locked down. Nobody gets in or out without our permission. I desperately searched for options. The elevator was too far, and they were between me and the stairs. My only hope was to somehow reach another level of the garage where there might be another exit. A movement caught my eye. Caleb crawling between cars, making his way toward me. Despite everything, I felt a surge of relief. He reached my position, breathing hard. Are you okay? I nodded. Why are you helping me? Because despite what you think, I do care about you, he said. And for once, I believed him. I got caught up in something bigger than I ever anticipated. And I've made terrible mistakes, but I never wanted you hurt. Another shot hit nearby, sending fragments of concrete flying. We need to move, Caleb whispered. There's a maintenance corridor behind that wall. He pointed to an area about 20 feet away. If we can reach it, we can get to the sub-basement and out through the service tunnels. How do you know that? A flash of guilt crossed his face. I've studied the building's schematics. Thoroughly. Of course he had. Part of whatever plan he'd been involved in. Ready? He asked. On 3, we run. 1, 2, 3. We sprinted across the open space. Bullets struck the ground around us as we ran. I felt a sharp sting across my arm but kept moving. Caleb reached the maintenance door first, yanking it open and pulling me inside. The narrow corridor was dimly lit by emergency lighting. We ran down it, the sounds of pursuit fading behind us. They'll figure out where we went, Caleb panted as we descended a metal staircase. We don't have much time. The sub-basement was a maze of pipes and electrical equipment. Caleb navigated it with surprising confidence, leading us deeper into the building's infrastructure. You really did plan for this? I said as we hurried along. Not for this exactly, he admitted. But yes, I had contingencies. We reached a heavy metal door that Caleb struggled to open. Finally, it swung outward, revealing a tunnel that appeared to run beneath the street. The service tunnel connects to the subway system about half a mile from here, he explained as we entered it. We can lose them there. We moved as quickly as we dared in the dim light. I was acutely aware of the throbbing pain in my arm where the bullet had grazed me. Caleb, I said as we walked, I need to know the truth. All of it. What happened to my father? What have you been involved in? He was quiet for a long moment. It started innocently enough, he finally said. I met Janet in college, like I told you. She contacted me years later when she was working for your father, mentioned he was looking for promising young executives to groom for the company. So you used her to try to get to him? I saw it as networking, Caleb said defensively. But when I met him and told him I was dating his daughter, he was suspicious. He thought I was using you to get to him. We argued. He threatened to tell you about the meeting, expose what he saw as my true intentions. Were those his true intentions? Caleb looked away. Not entirely. I did love you, Naomi. But yes, I was ambitious. I saw opportunities with right innovations. And Plan B? What was that really? He hesitated. I was desperate to prove myself to your father. I discovered some irregularities in the company financials. I thought if I could bring them to his attention, show him I had business acumen, he might change his mind about me. What kind of irregularities? Money being funneled to offshore accounts, contracts with shell companies, signs of serious corporate espionage. Caleb's voice dropped lower. I was in over my head, but too proud to back down. I confronted your father with what I'd found. And? He already knew. He'd been investigating it himself for months. But my confronting him forced his hand. He told me he was about to expose several board members who were selling company secrets to a Chinese competitor. I stopped walking, the implications hitting me. And the next day, he was dead. Caleb nodded solemnly. When I heard the news, I knew immediately it wasn't a coincidence. But I had no proof, and I was afraid. Afraid they'd come after me next. Afraid they'd come after you. So you kept quiet, I said, anger rising in my voice. Let me believe it was natural causes while you applied for a job at his company. I took the job to try to find evidence, Caleb insisted, to figure out who was behind it. For 3 years? I was incredulous. And in all that time, you never thought to tell me. I was trying to protect you. You were controlling me, I shot back, making me doubt myself, isolating me from my career, from my confidence. Caleb looked genuinely stricken. I never meant to. I just wanted to keep you away from the company until I could make it safe. Before I could respond, the distant sound of footsteps echoed in the tunnel behind us. They found the entrance, Caleb whispered urgently. We need to move faster. We broke into a run, the pain in my arm intensifying with each step. Ahead, I could see light. The tunnel was opening up. That's the access point to the subway maintenance area, Caleb explained as we approached. Once we're through, we can lose ourselves in the crowd. We reached the door, but it was locked. a heavy padlock securing it from the other side. "No," Caleb muttered, rattling the door uselessly. "This wasn't on the schematics." The footsteps behind us grew louder. We were trapped. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Jacob. "Where are you? Security reports you never made it to the car." I quickly typed back our location. "Who are you texting?" Caleb asked anxiously. "Jacob. The real Jacob." Caleb's expression darkened. "Naomi, there's something you should know about Jacob." The sound of the padlock being unlocked from the other side interrupted him. The door swung open, revealing Jacob himself, flanked by two men I recognized as part of his regular security team. "Naomi, thank God," Jacob said, reaching for my hand. Caleb stepped between us. "Don't trust him," he warned me. "Jacob is part of it." Jacob looked at Caleb with cold contempt. "Says the man who's been lying to her for years." He turned to me. "Naomi, we need to get you to safety. Now." I stood frozen between them, the two men who claimed to be protecting me, each accusing the other of betrayal. Behind us, our pursuers were closing in. I had seconds to decide whom to trust. Time seemed to slow as I stood between Caleb and Jacob, the sound of our pursuers echoing in the tunnel behind us. My father's voice suddenly came to me, advice he'd given years ago. "When everyone is telling you different stories, look at their actions, not their words." I studied Jacob, my father's trusted COO, the man who had helped me run Right Innovations from the shadows for 3 years. Then Caleb, my husband who had belittled me for years while secretly investigating my father's death. "Naomi," Jacob urged, extending his hand again. "We don't have time for this." That's when I noticed it. The slight tremor in his hand, the tightness around his eyes. Small tells my father had taught me to recognize. Signs of deception. I took a step back, moving closer to Caleb. "How did you find us, Jacob? I only texted our location seconds ago and you were already here." Jacob's expression hardened. "I tracked your phone, of course. Standard security protocol." "No," I said, the pieces suddenly falling into place. "You knew where I'd be because you're working with them. You made sure those fake security guards were waiting for me." Jacob's face changed, the mask of concern dropping away to reveal cold calculation. "You always were too smart for your own good, just like your father." Behind him, his security team raised their weapons, not at Caleb or our pursuers, but at me. "Why?" I asked, the betrayal cutting deep. "You were his friend, his right hand, and always in his shadow," Jacob replied bitterly. 30 years I worked alongside Christopher Wright, making him successful, watching him take the credit, the glory, the billions. Then when the Chinese investors approached me with an offer, I saw my chance to finally get what I deserved. "By stealing company secrets," I said, understanding now. "That's what my father discovered." Jacob nodded. "He confronted me, threatened to expose everything, said he was disappointed in me. He practically spat the last words. 30 years of loyalty, and all he could talk about was his precious moral code. So you killed him. It wasn't a question. It was business," Jacob said coldly. "Nothing personal, just like this is." He raised his gun, and I braced myself. But before he could fire, a deafening explosion came from behind us. The fake security guards had set charges to break through the locked door at the other end of the tunnel. In the moment of confusion, Caleb grabbed my arm and yanked me sideways through the door and into the subway maintenance area. Gunshots rang out behind us as we sprinted through the cramped space. "They're behind us!" Caleb panted as we ran. "And Jacob's men are ahead of us. We're surrounded." We emerged onto a subway platform, startling the handful of early morning commuters waiting for trains. The normality of the scene, people with coffee cups and newspapers, oblivious to the life-or-death situation unfolding, was jarring. "This way," Caleb urged, pulling me toward the exit stairs. "No," I said, pulling back. "They'll be watching all the exits." A train was approaching, its rumble growing louder. I made a split-second decision, pulling Caleb toward the edge of the platform. "When it slows down, we jump on," I said. "It's our only chance." The train hurtled into the station, brakes squealing. As it slowed, I spotted Jacob and his men entering the platform from one end, the fake security guards from the other. They hadn't seen us yet in the morning crowd. "Now," I whispered, and we slipped onto the train just as the doors were closing. We found seats at the far end of the car, trying to look as inconspicuous as possible despite my bleeding arm and our disheveled appearance. "We need a plan," Caleb said quietly. "They'll have people at every station." I nodded, mind racing. "We need evidence. Without it, it's just our word against Jacob's, and he has resources, connections." "I have some evidence," Caleb admitted. "Emails, records of overseas transactions I managed to copy. But it's hidden. At our house, ironically enough. In the safe behind your father's portrait." I stared at him. "All this time, I was gathering proof," he said. "Trying to build a case strong enough that they couldn't escape justice. I just needed a little more time." The train slowed as it approached the next station. I tensed, watching the doors. "They won't expect us to get off so soon," I said. "Let's go." We exited quickly, keeping our heads down as we made our way to the street level. Outside, the city was fully awake now, streets busy with morning commuters. "We need a car," I said, looking around. Caleb pointed to a taxi dropping off a passenger nearby. We hurried toward it, sliding into the back seat before the driver could object. "8th and Maple," Caleb told him, giving an address a few blocks from our home. "And there's an extra 100 if you can get us there in 10 minutes. As the taxi pulled into traffic, I finally had a moment to process everything. "Jacob," I said quietly. "All this time, I trusted him completely." "He played the role perfectly," Caleb said, his voice gentler than I'd heard it in years. "He was your father's friend for decades. No one suspected him. Except you." Caleb's expression was pained. "I suspected everyone after your father died. That's why I pushed you away from the company. He trailed off. "Why you undermined my confidence." I finished for him. "Made me doubt myself. My abilities. He couldn't meet my eyes. It was wrong. I know that now. I thought I was protecting you, but I was controlling you, just like you said. I became so focused on uncovering the truth that I lost sight of what mattered most. Us." The taxi pulled over several blocks from our house. Caleb paid the driver, and we continued on foot, taking a circuitous route to avoid being spotted. Our neighborhood was quiet, most residents already gone for work. We approached our house cautiously from the back. "Wait here," Caleb whispered as we reached the rear garden. "Let me check first." He crept forward to peer through the kitchen window, then motioned for me to follow. "Looks clear." We entered through the back door, moving silently through the house to my home office where my father's portrait hung. Caleb carefully removed it from the wall, revealing a small wall safe. "You know the combination?" I asked. He nodded. "It's your birthday." The safe clicked open, and Caleb reached inside, pulling out a small external hard drive. "Everything's here," he said. "Transaction records, emails, meetings Jacob had with the Chinese investors. Enough to prove he was selling company secrets, and that he had motive to kill your father." I took the drive, turning it over in my hands. "We need to get this to the authorities. Someone we can trust." "I know someone," Caleb said. "An FBI agent who specializes in corporate espionage. She's been building a case against these Chinese investors for years." The sound of a car pulling up outside made us both freeze. "Back door," Caleb whispered urgently. We hurried through the house, but before we could reach the kitchen, the back door burst open. One of the fake security guards from the parking garage stood there, gun raised. "Don't move," he ordered. Caleb stepped in front of me protectively. "James, right? Think about what you're doing. This is murder now. Corporate espionage is one thing, but are you ready to kill for Jacob?" James hesitated, just slightly. "It's too late to back out now." "It's never too late to do the right thing," I said from behind Caleb. "We have evidence implicating Jacob, not you. Help us, and I'll make sure the authorities know you cooperated." Before James could respond, the sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder, coming our way. His eyes widened in panic. "You called the police?" "No," Caleb said, looking as surprised as James. "But someone did." James wavered, his gun hand trembling slightly. "They promised me millions," he said almost to himself. "A new identity, a new life." "And how many lives would that cost?" I asked. "My father's. Mine." How many more? The sirens were very close now. James's face crumpled as the reality of his situation hit him. Slowly, he lowered his gun. Go, he said. Back door. I'll tell them you overpowered me. We didn't wait to be told twice, running out the back door and through neighboring yards until we reached the next street over. Police cars were converging on our house from all directions. This way, Caleb said, leading me to a small cafe on the corner. We can call my FBI contact from here. Inside, as Caleb made the call, I finally had a moment to breathe. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me shaky and lightheaded from blood loss and exhaustion. They're on their way, Caleb said, returning to the table. And I've sent them copies of everything. It's over, Naomi. Jacob won't escape this time. I studied my husband's face, seeing him clearly, perhaps for the first time in years. Why didn't you just tell me from the beginning? We could have faced this together. Caleb's eyes filled with regret. I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong. Your father believed in you completely. That's why he left you the company. I should have believed in you too. Within the hour, we were in a secure FBI location. Jacob and his associates had been arrested, and the evidence Caleb had gathered was being processed. My arm had been treated, and I'd given my statement. What happens now? I asked the agent in charge. Now we build our case, she said. With your testimony and the evidence, we have a strong chance of bringing them all to justice for corporate espionage and for your father's murder. I nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by the reality that my father's death would finally be avenged, his killers brought to justice. Later, alone with Caleb in a quiet room at the FBI building, I faced the question of our future. I understand if you still want that divorce, he said quietly. I betrayed your trust, even if my intentions were to protect you. I took a deep breath. I don't know what I want yet, Caleb. You lied to me for years. You undermined my confidence, made me doubt myself. That's not love. I know, he said, his voice breaking slightly. I lost myself in the mission, in the need for justice. I forgot what really mattered. I need time, I said. Time to process everything, to figure out who I am now that all the secrets are out. Whatever you decide, Caleb said. I want you to know I'm proud of you, Naomi. Your father would be too. You're everything he believed you could be. For the first time in years, I felt the truth of those words. I was strong. I was capable. I was my father's daughter. 3 months later, I stood before the Right Innovations Board of Directors, no longer hiding in the shadows. The company had weathered the scandal, emerging stronger than before under my visible leadership. As for Caleb and me, we were taking it one day at a time, rebuilding on a foundation of honesty instead of secrets. Whether our marriage would survive remained to be seen, but for the first time in years, I was facing the future on my own terms, not as just a housewife, but as Naomi Wright, CEO. Sometimes I thought as I looked out over the city from my father's office, now mine, the most powerful position is the one no one sees coming.